different areas. So it depends on what items really become part of this growth story in Tanzania and how do they fit into kind of India's own import needs and all that. But the prospects are very, very good, including value addition in food sector also, where Tanzania has good strengths.
Yeah, and if we go back again to these statistics on investment, most of us were expecting that India should be the number one, or if not number two, when it comes to this FDI sources to Tanzania. Unfortunately, one of the biggest Asian economies, China, is a bit ahead of you, and some of us were saying it looks like India is slipping back. India is going backwards, and India is traditionally or historically, as you have said earlier, that we have been together since the 1960s as members of the non-aligned movement until the present day. So many people were expecting much more stronger presence of the Indian investment in Tanzania. How do you explain that?
See, I think as I mentioned in the beginning, India is also itself a developing country, and we are not a big investors. If you look at global top investor countries or countries which move out and invest in other countries, there itself, India does not figure as prominently as many other countries figure. So I think it is very ambitious for India to be first or second largest trading partner when there are investors into Tanzania, when there are so many others who have had a long history also, because this is counted as cumulative investments over a long period of time, and the Tanzanian statistics are based on the last 25 years or something of investments coming in. But I think that apart, I think we look at what are the areas in which India can bring value into Tanzania's economic growth and focus on those areas which are the areas in which we are very strong, among the best, things like automobiles, things like pharmaceuticals, things like ICT or information and communication technologies, and also many of these services sectors, healthcare, and even education, banking, etc. That's where we believe that we are really as competitive as anybody else in the world, and focusing on those areas and adding value and really bringing or contributing in a manner to the Tanzania's growth. I think that's how we are approaching it, rather than seeing where we figure, because that is more an outcome of these efforts rather than really the starting point of these efforts. Yeah. But I think, as I said, there are a few good projects under discussion and I think are moving very well. So, and I think one good trend is also that there are some of the most competitive and the best companies from India have set up offices. They have started operations in Tanzania, and they are really very strong in these areas. Companies which are among the top 10 engineering companies in India, there are 2 or 3 of them who have started working in Tanzania. So I think that gives me a lot of hope, because once they start operating with small projects, when new opportunities come up, I am sure we will see bigger Indian presence, Indian investments into Tanzania in the next coming years.
And another area which is very strong, India is very strong globally, and which most of our people have benefited from or have tended to utilize, is the health services, the medicines and the hospitals. So the local records show that annually, on average, 25,000 up to 30,000 Tanzanians go to India for medical treatment. But we have not had a strong presence on the ground of Indian hospitals, despite the fact that I'm sure the 20,000 or 30,000 are just because of the money that they have, the means. But if these hospitals were in Tanzania, they probably could have been choked, been flooded by patients. How do you look at this area? Yeah. In terms of encouraging, of course, as you have said, is competitiveness, in terms of encouraging Indian companies to come and invest in the medical sector of Tanzania?
Yeah. No, the healthcare facilities, I think, of course, are good. Your numbers, it seems to be slightly higher, because when we issue visas and all, we see about maybe 5,000 or so people might be the number which may be traveling to India for healthcare facilities. But that's besides the point. I think that's an area where there is a lot which can be done, because as you yourself said, that there are not all people can travel, and the needs for healthcare sector are huge, and there are at least a couple of projects which are there, by Indian companies to set up hospitals here, and Apollo is one of them, which is among the best hospitals in India and a world class hospital. So, I mean, it has been under discussion for some time and all. Let's see, I mean, I think it is advancing well, the discussions now, and see if that happens, it will really bring the best healthcare into Tanzania. I mean, in terms of the quality, in terms of the standards. There are one or two other groups which are discussing this subject well, and let's see. I mean, I think if these 2 or 3 projects which are well advanced in terms of because the modalities of a hospital when it starts operating, it requires quality doctors or doctors with long experience, etc. It requires also having the best possible equipment with them, and also it in terms of its administration also requires kind of skills. So how those are to be weaved into Tanzanian conditions, that part requires some amount of effort, some amount of clarity. And I think many of these hospitals are planning to do it as a partnership project or something like that, and it is moving a little slowly. I mean, that's a valid point, but efforts are on. Let's see. I mean, I would be very, very happy if one of them materializes sometime very soon in the next 2-3 years, because it is really for the benefit of the people here. Also, it can play a big role. But I think I'm kind of encouraging both sides to finalize these dialogue quickly, and let's see.
If you listen, I know you attend to many of these in the private sector. If you listen to the private sector, listening to how they're trying to get things done, because I know one of the things we have here, the problem is bureaucracy. Probably people want to go fast, but they are experiencing some hurdles in the process. What is the Indian private sector saying, if you're listening to them, when they are on the ground to start projects or to get partners?
See, I think it's good to have a clear framework for the project to start, because otherwise you start a project and it enters into problems or something like that. So I think to that extent, it is good to be thorough and to be defining things very, very clearly. So I think that's that part. Maybe it's a little difficult area, whether you move rapidly and try to look at results, or you try to define them more clearly in terms of having a long-term and sustainable project. So no, I think they are generally engaged, and things are moving in terms of discussions. Some of those intricacies and details are really such that they require more clarity. They require that they fit in with Tanzania's priority, and in terms of what the investors may be seeking to achieve. So bringing them to the same level may be an effort which might take time, but I think we have to just continue encouraging and all, and trying to see if you can at some stage bridge some of those gaps in the discussions. And that's our approach, and that's how we think we can achieve good results.
In the past, we have had minor problems with the private sector, in the sense that I think it was in 2012 when the government said we banning the exporting of Tanzanite, which is less than a gram and polished, and there was a lot of uproar in Jaipur, where this industry is very strong. That, come on guys, you are starving us of raw materials. How is the situation now, and as a government, how do you look at this area?
Yeah. No, it's a critical, I think, area of government priorities, and also the private or market economy forces, how to bridge them together in a policy direction which is most suitable for Tanzania. It's of course for Tanzania to decide the kind of policies which it would like to follow and how it would like to take them forward. I know that in India, the Indian sources of Tanzanite, raw Tanzanite, would like a more liberal regime, and they want it to be, because I think their argument goes as follows. They are saying that this raw material required, the cutting and polishing of it is a skill which is developed over a large period of time, and sometimes even decades and things like that, and second is obviously these stones, once you cut and polish, they become part of jewelry industry because they are sold as a product. And third is obviously the market itself, where they are consumed and all. India is also a big consumer of gems and jewelry as a sector, And so I think from those period, that point of view, their argument is that, while you build your skills, don't ban the export completely. That's what they have been seeking to do. But of course, Tanzania would like value addition happening in Tanzania, and I think in that direction there has been some progress. What I hear is there are a few centers which have come up which are engaging into cutting and polishing and all that, and I think these auctions which have been started by government of Tanzania, they are playing a useful role. I think these auctions allow things to be done in a fair manner, because otherwise, sometimes a ban can encourage, people using other means and all that, and I think so these auctions enable people to buy raw material and to be able to still serve some of the cutting and polishing and jewelry and gems industry in India, etc. So I think they are a good positive change in that direction, but we'll see. I mean the two things have to bridge. The market forces and the government priorities have to really reach at a level when it serves the best needs of Tanzania, and of course whatever is helps the Indian business people.
Looking at that area, as you have said, India is a huge market of gems, and the technology is there and the skills, that when critics are saying why Tanzanite is only found in Tanzania, why don't we have a huge Indian presence on the ground here, that okay guys, we are coming to mine. We'll mine and we'll do the value addition right in Tanzania and save our market and the global market.
No, I think that's a very good idea, and I think the Indian companies will be interested in. I think what needs to be done is to really talk directly to 2 or 3 such groups and see what kind of incentives or encouragement you can give it to them. Because, as I said, the advantage of doing it with the people who are already based there, or Jaipur or Surat, etc., there are pluses because they have developed those skills over a period of time. So I think when you start doing at a new place, you will need to have a little bit of skilled manpower. In the beginning, you might need to let the trainers come and try to, engage into those cutting, polishing, transferring of skills part of it. Initially, when somebody starts, they will have to also bring in some investments, etc. So I mean, any change requires little extra cost.
Yeah.
So how one can encourage those people and maybe offer some incentives so that, this process of setting up such facilities in Tanzania can become more attractive to the companies. I think that's the way to approach, and I don't know, I mean, at some stage, if this direct dialogue between the possible investors and the facilities that can be extended to them, I think if that is bridged, it is a good area to work.
As you have said, we have been members of the South-South Commission with Tanzania, and I think the Chinese were in there also. Recently, we have seen border disagreements, border skirmishes between India and China, and for us as Tanzanians, both of you are our friends. We are like, come on, what's happening here? What is your comment? Are these just passing by? We want to see, because now the world is afraid of seeing 2 nuclear powers fighting over this dispute in your borders. How serious is this? Is this not?
I think there is dialogue going on between the 2 sides, and I think as part of this diplomatic interaction, we hope to have kind of a positive resolution of this. And as you, perhaps it is a known fact that the border at all places is not defined clearly, and it's not demarcated, etc. So it leads to sometimes gaps between what is a perceived border between the 2 sides, and I think these things are best addressed by dialogue between the 2 sides, and we hope that that's how it will be resolved as well.
And which forum are you using? Is it direct talks between the 2 of you, or what's happening to the South-South Commission now? Is it really functioning?
Yeah, I think as the word is growing, I think there are multiple new mechanisms which have come in and all, these are in terms of multilateral forums of various kinds, and India initiated something called India-Africa Forum Summit, which has become, I think, an important platform for us to develop the relationship with countries in Africa, and Tanzania is one of those leading partners in that field. And so I think we have, and things bilaterally also happening, as part of development cooperation or development partnership between India and Tanzania. There are different things. There are capacity building activities in terms of technical training, in terms of having facilities constructed in terms of soft loan facilities for water projects. I mentioned something is happening in agriculture, something is happening in transport sector and all. So, I think this maybe there are too many mechanisms through which things are happening and all, and in our case the bilateral development cooperation is a mechanism which is, I think, playing a very critical role in the relationship. And second is the India African Forum Summit, through which there are lots of decisions made, and the last summit which happened little more than a year and a half ago, that's another one which gave lot of kind of substance and direction to different projects of different kind between India and Tanzania, because India and Africa serves as a summit where the decisions are made and commitments are taken, but when the implementation happens, it comes through the governments of the two respective countries and all that. So I think these two are serving very well in terms of what we are achieving and what we are trying to do in the coming years between India and Tanzania in the sector of development.
And talking about funding for the various projects, there was this initiative which I'm sure is ongoing, the BRICS initiatives. There's 5 big countries, emerging economies, trying to come up with funding that will be much more friendlier, which has much more mild conditions than the existing multilateral financing institutions. What is happening with the BRICS Bank? How far is it now getting started on the ground?
The bank was inaugurated about a little more than a year ago in Shanghai, and the president of the bank, the first president, comes from India, and there are 4 vice presidents coming from the other BRICS member countries. And so bank is functional, and it has already sanctioned a few projects. I think initially they are focusing on projects in the 5 countries, and subsequently there is a plan to really also take the projects beyond the countries, etc. But I think so bank is up and running, and it is actually also already kind of sanctioning projects and loans to all the member countries for specific projects. So that's, I think, one very concrete achievement. Otherwise, I think this platform is an important platform in promoting kind of a multipolar governance and contributing to lots of global issues of big importance to actually the whole world. And also, but economic field is something in which there are concrete results to show. Apart from this development bank, I think they are talking of developing a rating agency for the purpose of economic ratings of different countries, etc. That's also moving very well. And there are specific ideas, especially in healthcare, agriculture, etc., to use this mechanism to do things maybe first among the 5 countries, and then maybe take them beyond to other countries and also. So I think the mechanism is moving very well. We are looking forward to the summit is scheduled in about, I think, a month and a half or 2 months time.
Do you see as coming in like African countries, because everyone was so excited with this idea, saying, okay, we may find ourselves running away from the harsh conditions of the other multilateral lenders. Do you think, now you're saying it's only a club of the members only. At some stage, do you see like other developing countries like African countries coming aboard?
Yeah. South Africa, of course, as you know, is already a member of BRICS, and I think we generally believe that it is good to have an institution with a good foundation and take steps slowly, because then they are sustainable. Sometimes when you rush and try to do too many things, then you can easily get disillusioned soon in terms of results not coming through very, very quickly or at the expectation. So expectations and the progress which needs to be done, I think they have to be matched. I think that's the way I think it is moving forward. And I'm sure at some stage in the future there will be, and I think the objective is also to play a wider role in that field. And we understand, from India's own perspective, we see Africa as a place where lots of future development has to come through. There's a lot to achieve, and I'm sure BRICS as a forum also could play a role there. And as we said, South Africa represents very strongly the African voice in terms of the future direction of the forum. And we also, India as a